Thanks for tuning in to the Cork Creative Podcast. With this podcast, we hope to shine a light on the great work being done in local businesses. If you would like to learn more, please visit corkcreative.ie. Cork has a long established reputation for its outstanding food producers. In recent years, wonderfully crafted Cork beers and spirits have come to the market that accentuate that reputation. With that in mind, we have decided to run our first series on craft brewers and distillers here in Cork. Today, in the second part of the series, Terra, head brewer from the West Cork Brewing Company, joins Patrick for a chat about the important part their customers play in the business and their focus on building that relationship further, the collaborative nature of the craft beer industry, and their exciting plans for 2022.
So you're very welcome to Cork Creative, Terra.
Oh, thanks so much, Patrick. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
The beer titles that you use at the West Cork Brewing Company often draw inspiration from the local area. How would you characterise this inspiration? Is it from names, from the beer type, or for the ingredients?
So for our names, actually, what we'll do is anytime we develop a new recipe and come up with a new brew, we'll put it out to some of our loyal customers, some of our social media followers, some people who are just pretty involved with the brewery, and we'll say, hey, we have this new beer. It's this kind of style. It tastes like this. Maybe these are some of the ingredients, and we'll put it out there for a contest. Everyone can submit any names that they like to come up with, and we whittle it down to somewhere between 2 and 5, and then the final name is actually chosen by our customers. And that gets us some really awesome creative names that keep us going forward.
No, that's excellent. And you managed to avoid the mischievous names like Boaty Mac Boatface or all of these things that crowdsourcing sometimes throws up.
Well, thus far, we keep making a lot of new beer, so we may end up with one of those at some point in the future. More so if people hear this, I think.
I'll keep an eye out. Do you have any particular inspiration for your marketing approach? I mean, it's a very distinctive approach that you've taken that reflects the founder's personality and the company strategy.
Yeah, I think the strategy is more determined by just, letting the personality shine through what we're trying to do rather than trying to say, okay, this is our personality and this is the strategy, therefore, that we are going to do from it. Or here's a strategy we want to do. Now let's, shoehorn a personality into that. I think we're just trying to sort of be ourselves and be who we are and make good beers and engage with people in a sort of authentic, genuine way. So strategy is maybe less of a part of it than just conversation and getting to have a chat with people.
It's a solid plan. Authentic beer from authentic people. We'll take that. There's a lot to be said for it.
I like it. You say it much better than I do.
That won't last. I notice on your website that the list of suppliers that you list are very geographically specific and very West Cork and to some extent North Cork based. What are your ambitions in the future in terms of growing the business or moving it further afield?
So I think for now, for the foreseeable future, at least the next year or two, we really are going to try to keep it focused on, West Cork. We're going to be putting a lot of our energies into developing some sort of new beers and some new ways to interact with our customers, with things like beer clubs, tours, sort of more of a relationship with our customers. We're going to focus on developing that and on developing some more recipes. So we can get a little bit, we have a pretty good variety of beers out there now. Actually, we have 9 out at the moment, but we want to keep playing with and exploring that and really developing that. And then once all of that is sort of tuned in, we might look at expanding our distribution network. We have had interest, people from Dublin, people from Galway, people from Germany, people from France, actually asking if we could get our products out there, which we would love to be able to do at some point, but rather than sort of pushing for expansion over refinement, we're going to refine who we are and what we're doing and what we want to be doing. And then we can work on growing that later. So for now, it's just Cork and West Cork, but sure, it's just another reason for people to come visit West Cork.
Yeah, as someone who lives in West Cork, I'm very glad to be here and very glad that you're here.
Ditto. Thank you.
You produce a special Christmas beer, and I noticed that, from my limited grasp of beers, it's something that I noticed is very common in Germany. Is that where you took inspiration from, or was a useful conceit to have a special edition beer?
Actually, it sort of started as so pastry beers, dessert beers or pastry beers are pretty big in the craft industry right now, and they're also pretty divisive. People either love them or hate them, and there doesn't really seem to be much in between there. But I just kind of wanted to do something fun for Christmas,
Sure.
and I thought, oh sure, like I've never made a pastry beer before. Let's make a pastry beer, and trying to think of what would fit with Christmas. And I was actually thinking back to because we don't have Christmas pudding in America, but where it's not not standard. But my husband used to tell me stories about how the only time they would ever have beer in his house growing up is the one time a year his mom went out and bought the 4 bottles of Guinness to make the Christmas pudding with. And she would pull out this really big pot that like took up 2 burners on the stove. And that's the only thing it was ever used for. And it was such a nice memory for him and such like a lovely memory that I thought, oh, well, there's beer in Christmas pudding. And sure, Christmas pudding sounds fun. So, and Casey's, the restaurant we're affiliated with, makes their own Christmas pudding here. So I thought, yeah, sure, let's just do a Christmas pudding beer. That sounds like a lot of fun. And I modeled it off the recipe at Casey's. So now we have our Christmas pudding porter, which is a lot of fun and a very big beer. So.
Great. No, that's brilliant. That's a very synergistic beer. It checked all the boxes on a variety of levels.
It did, yeah. It's a little bit of kismet for that beer, I should think so. And I think we're actually going to do it every year now going forward. So I just made one small batch for this year just to sort of see how it would come out, see how it would go, see what the reception would be like. And we are actually nearly sold out of it now. I only made about 200 liters. So we won't do any more for this year, but then next year I think we'll do a slightly different take on a Christmas pudding beer every year. And then, maybe add some others into that. So
brilliant. Yeah. So we were speaking earlier about the growth of craft beers in Ireland and the fact that there's maybe 70 craft breweries in Ireland now at this point, when again it pales in comparison to what's available internationally or what's available in California where you're from. Is there a lot of camaraderie between the craft breweries in Ireland, in West Cork? Do you go for a craft beer together, so to speak, or how do you interact with each other?
Do you know, I haven't had the chance to have a craft beer with many people yet, having just started as a brewer in May and with the whole situation for the year. But it is such an amazingly collaborative industry, and people are so nice and so helpful and so wonderful. I've never seen anything like it in any other industry. And there's like an Independent Craft Brewers of Ireland WhatsApp group where you can just be like, hey, does anyone have an idea about, how to fix this pump, what style of carbonation to do. We need 3-pack gift boxes for Christmas, and it's hard to source them because cardboard is so difficult right now. So you do all these pairings and meetups and help each other out, and it's not cutthroat. It's so friendly. It's so helpful. It's so collaborative. We went to the Ballymaloe Craft Fair for the first time this year. We did the 2 weekends there, and I'd never done anything like that before. So, I was next to Dave, who's from the Dingle Porter House there. We had a stand right next to his stand. I didn't have a way to process credit cards. So he was like helping me out with like, oh yeah, sure. Look at this program and look at this thing. You can get them pretty fast. You run out of change, they have some change. Like you just have the chat, you talk about different processes and theories and techniques. And, Adrian and Dan from West Kerry Brewing have been so amazing with they'll put up with all of my questions about, processes and process improvement and different, again, tips, tricks, and techniques. It's not, it's not like what you would think. You would think like, okay, you're all making beer, and sure, there's a lot of competition there, and okay, yeah, there is, but it's craft beer, and there's an audience for craft beer that wants a lot of different flavors, ideas, innovations all the time. And I think there's a personality that a lot of people have when they go into craft beer, because it's not, it's a labor of love. Your margins aren't, no one's going to be Bill Gates from making craft beer. Like it's just not going to happen. So it's a real labor of love, and it's something you do with a lot of passion. And I think that carries over in other relationships. And, there's a guy in Skibbereen here, Stu Southern, who will be setting up his own brewery in Skib in the coming year. And he has been like my beer Yoda. He has been my beer mentor. We'll talk anytime I have any, thoughts or idea, like, hey, I want to do something really crazy. And like, hey, Stu, how do you think this would translate from boil to fermenter to, and you just shoot back and forth. You learn from each other. You play off each other. And the level of camaraderie and assistance and just general awesomeness is really, really, really amazing. The collaboration is it's hard to even put into words because it's just so wonderful and it's so genuine and it's so cool. I mean, if every industry was like this, we'd have world peace and everyone would be like living on a beach sipping on craft beer and getting a massage or something all at the same time. It's really cool.
You described the prototypical community of practice. It's what a lot of them aspire to be, but it's what has already arrived for craft breweries in Ireland, it seems. Great.
Yeah, it's really neat.
No, brilliant. And you described it as a labour of love, the creation of beers. And I suppose, what was the inspiration behind the setting up of West Cork Brewing Company in the first instance?
So Dominic, Henry, and Kevin had all been childhood friends, and they had I think they had seen a friend of theirs set up a brewery and sort of give it a go and it not work out. I'm not really sure who that was, but it didn't work out. So the three of them got together and they were like, well, hey, we can do this. We can make some beer. This would be amazing. We could make some good craft beer from some great places. And so they did. They wanted to make something that honored the environment here, the West Cork, the beauty of West Cork, the nature of West Cork, the well-crafted products that are available in West Cork and things. So everything's, made with the well water that's used on site. Everything's sourced as locally as possible. And it was sort of a childhood dream to get together and have some fun and make some beers and be creative. And they've done it, they've really done it. The brewery just celebrated its 7th anniversary. So well done to the lads.
No, for sure, indeed. And I suppose the logical corollary to that question is, what inspired you to get into brewing? And how did you get into brewing yourself then?
When I came to Ireland, I had a little bit of time on my hands, and being from California, I'd always been really, really, really into craft beer. I've actually traveled to other countries just to go to craft beer festivals. And so when I came here and I had a little bit of time on my hands, I thought, oh, sure, I'll play around with some things. I'll try to make some beer. I'll try to make some hooch. I'll try to ferment some items. So I went out to my garden. I harvested anything I could get my hands on. I got some stuff online and I just started going full mad scientist and crazy in my kitchen and putting all kinds of different things together in different combinations. And some of it was absolutely horrible. Some of it was so bad, but some of it was really, really, really amazing. And seeing that and seeing how those recipes developed and how flavors translate from a sort of raw product into a finished fermented product, just sort of inspired me to go even crazier and try more things and work out even more combinations. And so that led to a lot of conversations that I would have with poor Dominic anytime I saw him, and hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And what's this work like for you? So then when he, had an opening and they were looking for a new brewer, he thought of me and offered me my dream job. So now I get to have my dream job here, being part of the West Cork Brewing Company and making beer, which is just the best thing ever. So
brilliant. It's a great journey to a brilliant destination. Very good. Thanks for sharing.
I'm certainly am. I feel like I'm living in a dream. I'm definitely the luckiest person I've ever known.
So who'd be the ideal person to hire into a brewing company? The Clonakilty distillers were mentioning that the priority for them is eagerness to learn and enthusiasm. Is that the same for brewing, as it's a labour of love, or are there other particular qualities you look for?
No, that's absolutely what I would say. In my opinion, my perfect person would be someone who is enthusiastic, curious, passionate, excited, and hardworking. And, as far as any sort of formal education or any sort of, you don't really need any of that. If you're curious, if you're interested, and if you're hardworking, that's really all you need. Everything else you can figure out. Everything else can be taught, but those are the things that are really, really, really necessary. If you're just kind of looking to have the same day every day, that can be lovely for a lot of things, and routine can be nice and wonderful, but it's not going to, in my opinion, it's not going to work in a place like this and in an industry like this, and formal education is fabulous and wonderful and great. But you can learn as you go, but I don't know how you teach eagerness. I don't know how you teach passion, so those are the things I think someone would need to have, and anything else you can teach.
Sure. And that's good advice indeed. You're looking for more innate skills than something that can be book taught. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and sure, if they're a bit of crack as well, I mean, like, that's all right.
Especially after a couple of beers, yeah.
Especially after a couple of beers, or more importantly, before a couple of beers. But
good point, well made.
I mean, there are days when you are absolutely in the trenches together. So I think that lends itself to building its own sort of camaraderie. Anyway, if you're, well, we'll just leave it at that, shall we say?
No, for sure.
Yeah.
The nature of being a craft brewer is you are ultimately going up against some, how would I say, rather large players in the market. And you have the established, more generic brands, which we'd all like to best avoid, kind of associate more with my youth than anything I'd want to drink now. And then you have the fact that I suppose some of those established players are also, I suppose, buying out some of the craft breweries. And how do you compete or differentiate yourself from them in terms of offering, or do you even need to in the Irish market, do you think?
That's a good question. I wouldn't think, I know it's all beer, so to speak, but honestly, they're just so different. I don't feel the need to go up and challenge a Heineken or a Carlsberg or Guinness. I don't feel the need to try to fight against them or prove anything different or better than them. I mean, what we do is it's such a different thing, and it's such a different, area that you're going for, a person that you're going for. And sure, you can love filet mignon and you can love Domino's pizza. You can love both of those things, and they're both very different, right? So
sure.
Just because there are these really big behemoths who are really good at what they're doing, and maybe make €1 million in the drop of a hat, and just because we're small and craft and a labor of love, I think it's just different. And that's not saying anything bad about the big guys either. That has a time and a place too. But no, I don't feel, I guess the short answer to your question is, I don't really feel a need to go up against them. I don't really feel a need to compete with them. What we do is so different. All I feel the need to do is to really do what we do well, and to make the best version of our beers that we can make. And I think that I think that that's enough, because I think that there are enough people looking for enough flavors who like enough different things, that I think if we focus on being a good company who makes a good product and is a good part of the community, I think that's all we need to do, and have a little fun. Sure, we'll see if I'm right, but I don't worry about the big guys, and I don't worry about the small guys. I don't worry about, I don't view the other craft breweries as competitors either. I'm not worried about knocking them out or getting more of a market share. I think the more craft breweries that there are, actually, especially in Ireland, in a small place like Ireland, the better it is, because the more innovation there is, the more inspiration there is, the more you can all feed off of each other. I really think it just adds to what's possible in the marketplace, rather than sort of taking anything away from anyone, And the more craft beers there are out there, the more people you're going to get who maybe think they never would have thought that they would like craft beer. And then they try one from somewhere and they're like, oh my gosh, I do actually like this. And then that gets them involved into this whole new area anyway. So I think that there's enough room for everyone. And I think the more people there are, the better it is, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, the activity or the diversity breeds its own innovation. And
exactly.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So speaking to that, I suppose then do you think that I suppose I'm in the Irish context, but I'm talking about in general international context, with the revolution in craft beer and with the advent of more craft beers, do you think that, I suppose, the Irish palate or people's palates around beer in general has just become a little bit more refined? We're more willing to try new things. We are looking for something more than the standard stock Heineken, Budweiser, Carlsberg.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say refined. I think, I definitely think since I first started coming to Ireland, I see a much greater diversity of beers available. and I see many more people willing to try things that they've never had before, and sometimes even liking them. So I think it's changed a lot, and I think that's really common though. Like if you only ever have, two options, two flavors of something, of course that's not going to really open you up to getting super into exploring more or getting out of the comfort zone or getting away from the pint that you always order your usual when you get there. But when you have like 10 options and you can say, okay, maybe I don't like 8 of these, but these 2 are actually pretty good, and then maybe that leads to something else and that leads to something else. And I think that's sort of this slow rise you see in people's willingness to try new beers and people's desire for craft beer, and people going into their local and saying, do you have any craft beer? Do you have a bottle of this? Would you put this on tap? Yeah, I think it's sort of it's been a slow process to get that going. Now that it's going, it seems almost exponential. It seems like a runaway freight train, and I think that's probably going to continue for a while.
And speaking, I suppose, of harnessing the runaway freight train and plotting for 2022 and beyond, so what are the future plans for the West Cork Brewing Company?
We've got a lot of exciting plans for next year. It's a little hard to say, how or when they're going to happen with the whole situation. We've got some seasonal beers coming out. We're going to be doing some botanical beers coming out, which is, with things that we forage and then make into beer. We're going to hopefully pair up with things like the West Cork walking groups that are in the summer, and maybe even the West Cork Food Festival if that's on, and try to get people involved in like responsible foraging and harvesting and taking those ingredients and bringing them back and making new beers or like new versions of ancient beers, because before beers were made with hops, they were actually called groots, and they were made with all kinds of things as the bittering agent, like yarrow, for example, which grows like weeds down here. So you can go harvest your yarrow, you can come back, you can make some groot, you can have a modern twist on an ancient art, on an ancient beverage, and bring that into a sort of reconnecting with nature, with your environment, with sustainability, with things like that. We're also going to be branching out into doing some gluten-free beers so that we have options for people who are gluten-free. We are also going to be releasing a new line of sodas, hopefully earlier in the year, but I'm not quite sure, where we will be just having it as a sort of non-alcoholic fizzy drink with different flavors, again, with natural flavors, with, not your sort of bog standard fizzy drink that's orange or that's lemon or that's Coca-Cola or something. Just some different natural. We hope to forage and harvest what we can. Keep them simple, 3 ingredients, maybe 4 maximum. We're actually pairing with the guys at the Cape Clear distillery who make the 3 Square Miles gin. They grew some hops last year just for fun, and so we've taken their hops and we're going to take some of the seaweed that they use in their gin that they harvest, and we're going to make our sea shandy sparkling hop water. So it'll be a nice refreshing thing. You can either mix it with gin, you can drink it straight, just more options like that to sort of have a little something for everyone, have some non-alcoholic options, have some gluten-free options, and just get new tastes and new flavors out there and get to play around and have fun. And along with tours and educational things and things like that, it should be a really extremely busy, extremely fun, and very exciting year. So fingers crossed.
Indeed. We won't mention the situation, but we hope that it resolves itself to facilitate all of these wonderful initiatives, because it would be nice if our imaginations weren't curtailed by that anymore.
I know, right? I've just decided to let the imagination go, and sure, whenever we can do it is whenever we can do it.
It's brilliant that the new products too are they're very much situated in West Cork and of West Cork, and they're using the foraged ingredients, and there's that focus on sustainability, and it definitely echoes what Clonakilty Distillery are looking to do with their heritage grains and the samphire that they harvest for their gin as well. So I mean, it's great to hear. It's great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, look, we live in such a beautiful, magical part of the world. It's truly a place like nowhere else I've ever seen. It's got its own beauty. It's got its own magic, and we really want to honor and honor and be appreciative and just really work with that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Terra. It's been great talking to you, and it's great to get an insight into West Cork Brewing Company and brewing in general.
Oh, no. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, not a problem at all. And if anyone wants to learn anything more about the West Cork Brewing Company, we'll have links to their offerings, their website, their beers and profiles on our website, and to accompanying the podcast in the podcast description. Thank you very much again, Terra.
Thanks so much, Patrick. I hope you have a great day. Really appreciate it.